Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's your boy D Black coming back with another SmackDown review. And remember, always raw and uncut. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment. All right, SmackDown tonight. Wasn't too bad. I mean, it wasn't great and stuff. I'll go ahead and give it the early ranking before I go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go ahead and give this probably a 5. It was like mid and everything. So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't too bad. But anyway, start out with Nick Aldis going to the ring and stuff. And he's saying, he's reached the decision on Chelsea Green's, injury, her orbital in her eye and stuff. She has a bad injury. And then he calls Chelsea Green out, and Chelsea, she comes out to the ring, you know, and the fans, they getting in there and they're chanting for her and stuff like that. And then Nick tells her that he can't let her perform, with the eye injury. And then Chelsea says that she will do whatever it takes. Then tells Nick all this to not say, what he's going to say to her. And then Nick says, it's his job, as GM to make sure, that everyone, all the wrestlers, are healthy to perform. And then Chelsea then tells Chelsea, that she has to relinquish the women's championship title. Then Chelsea says she knew it was too good, to be true. That she won, the title by, climbing, the ladder and then winning. It was an interim match. It was, 5 women involved in it, and Chelsea, she made it to the top and she wins the battle. And she and then she said that she was just waiting, you know, um, for the shoes to drop and everything, because every time something good and magical happens to her in this business, it's followed up with something, devastating. And it's just, and it's just her sad story, you know. Um, and it always happens to her, she says her name, Chelsea, and stuff. Um, and then she says that all Chelsea is like, a comic relief, um, and says that she's, they say that she's the perfect, opponent for, all the women, that are in the back and stuff. She's, always a mid Carter. She goes and faces everybody and stuff, and then she loses. But I mean, they did give her the first women's, U.S. title when they put the women's U.S. title out there. She was the first one to win the title. She lost it, she regained it, and then she lost it back. And then now, she's world champion and stuff. And then she said that she can never be, you know, a real champion and never be QB1, And then Chelsea tells Nick, you know, he knows much, she knows how much, she sacrificed, to be where she's at and do what she's done. I mean, which is true, Chelsea's been around for a while and she's actually been through the windmill, saying she's missed, weddings and funerals. Then she goes on saying that, she wrestled, with broken bones and stuff, and just a few weeks ago, well, maybe a month or so ago, she's just coming off a broken ankle that she had, you know. And then she was saying that, she's been in the ring, with broken bones and left, all her blood, sweat, and tears, in the ring. And then said she's put her face through birthday cakes, pies, and threw her body into a dumpster and everything, and had the whole world laughing at her in her face. And every night, then she says every night when she goes to bed, she tells herself, that it was all worth it and stuff. Because this moment, would come, and now here we are. She knew that this moment would come. I mean, she's up on top of the pedestal and stuff. And now that the moment is high for her, now they're trying to take it away from her and stuff because she, she's injured. And then she said, "Look, hey, I made it." And then tells Nick, he should understand it, especially after SummerSlam, talking about his match, with Gunther. And then Nick tells her, it's not the Nick tells her that it's not the same thing, and Chelsea tells him that it is the same thing. Then tells Nick, you know, um, he was out there with his family, and the fans, applauded him and stuff. Then she says, she went out there, um, and together they proved that it, doesn't matter what anyone thinks about them. You know, all that matters is what they think about themselves. You know, and then she tells Nick he was, a champion, and that his wife was a champion. And then it says that Nick, and then she then tells Nick until someone takes the title off of her, she will be the champion. And the fans go crazy, and they start saying she deserves it and stuff like that. Then she tells Nick, she thought of all people. She tells Nick that she thought of all people, he would be the one that would understand where she's coming from and what she's saying, you know. And after that, she hands Nick the title, you know, and then she starts to leave the ring and she walks off. And as she's walking down the corridor, down the stretch and everything, Nick tells her to wait. Then Nick says, he's the GM. He thinks he's doing the right thing. Then says, as Nick Aldis, the man, he doesn't care what medical or anybody at the top says. Then tells Chelsea that she has 30 days, she tells her he has 30 days to get cleared by medical, get a face mask, and to do whatever it takes, you um, for her to defend, the title. And as far as he is concerned, until someone takes the title away from her, that she is actually the true champion, you know. And then he hands the title back to her. Then, as all this is going on, then out comes Gunther. Gunther says, Gunther gets in the ring and he says, "Enough of this sob story. You know, no one wants to hear it." Then tell Nick Aldis that he knows that Triple H has him, on a short leash and stuff. And then why? And then he tells Nick, he said why he pulled the stunt that he pulled at SummerSlam. Nick tells him they can talk about whatever happened at SummerSlam, later in his office because right now he's talking to the women's champion, which is Chelsea Green. Then Gunther tells Chelsea, what's so good about you? What did you do? Climb a ladder at SummerSlam? And then a week later, you bump your face into a door frame? And now she's out here crying about it? It was pretty good. Gunther, Gunther is Gunther again. Gunther is back to Gunther. And I like this Gunther. This Gunther is a good one. And then says to Chelsea, he pulled double duty at SummerSlam, and he completed both. He competed on both nights of SummerSlam, and then says, at one of the nights he made somebody tap. He made a man tap out, in front of his family. So he's talking about Nick Aldis, tapping out in front of his wife and his kids and stuff. And then says to Nick Aldis, why did he add Kevin Owens, to the match, to his match and stuff, And the match wasn't Gunther's match; it was a match that was supposed to be Sami Zayn and Finn Balor and stuff. And then Nick tells Gunther that he didn't add Kevin Owens to his match, that he added him to Kevin Owens' match. And then Nick tells Gunther that they were, planning for Kevin Owens to return, and they did him a favor and said that he's sorry that Gunther, didn't get the job done. And and then Chelsea tells Gunther, you know, about it and everything. And Gunther tells Chelsea to do him a favor and shut up, because she was teasing Gunther about, what Nick Aldis was saying. And then Chelsea Green tells Gunther, you know, to go ahead and puff his chest up to a woman and to have his how did she put that? She told him to have she told him to have his little teeny tiny stroke, you know, and his little male ego, and is really all and that's really all he has. What's he gonna do? Can't do nothing to her and stuff. And because after SummerSlam, and then Chelsea says that she's looking around in the ring and stuff because Gunther was talking all that smack and everything. And so she said that she's looking around the ring, and all she can see in the ring is just one champion, and it was her. Then Gunther goes to get into Chelsea Green's face, and out comes her husband, Matt Cardona, and stuff. And Gunther says to Matt, "Look at that." He tells you, "Oh man, Gunther's a trip. I like this." Gunther says to Matt, "Look at that, all the way from catering to the wrestling ring," and then says to Matt, "What's he going to do to him? He's not going to do anything to him, and there's nothing that he can do and stuff." And then he said, Gunther goes on and says, "I can say anything, to your girl, I can say any slur, in the world right now in front of you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And then Chelsea tries to talk, Matt Cardona down because Matt kind of like got pissed after that, you know. And then Gunther says, and then they try to leave the ring and stuff like that. And then Gunther says, look at him like a little dog who listens to his owner. And then after that, then Matt Cardona punches Gunther, and they brawl for a little bit and everything. And then the match is set, for Gunther and Matt Cardona. And as you would thought, I mean, during the brawl, Matt Cardona, he kind of really got a lot up on Gunther and stuff. And in the match, there was a lot of, it was kind of a little bit back and forth. Matt got some, but Gunther actually dogged him out and stuff. And then two power bombs, and then puts him in the Boston Crab. And immediately, Matt Cardona taps out. And then after the match, out comes Nia Jax and Lash Legend. And Nia is saying to Chelsea Green, that Nia is saying that she got screwed out of SummerSlam. And now she wants, what's hers, the title. And then tells Chelsea if she doesn't give up, what she wants, that she has no problem, and that she has a history of breaking people's faces, you know. And then I mean, because she did break Becky Lynch's nose with one punch and stuff, and she has hurt a few other women in the ring and stuff. And then out comes Tiffany Stratton. And then Tiffany Stratton, comes in the ring. She starts brawling with Nia Jax and Lash Legend, and then they get her, start beating her down and take her out and stuff. And there's nothing that Chelsea could do because she's medically not cleared, to get involved with anything. And she got hurt, not Chelsea, but Tiffany Stratton, she gets hurt, with the rumble between Nia Jax and Lash Legend. And then we got this little backstage promo with Charlotte, Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair. And, they're talking about, you know, um, Charlotte's thanking Alexa Bliss for taking out B-Fab and Meechin. And then Alexa says, it wasn't, her, it was Tatum Paxley, and to thank Tatum Paxley and that she was proud of her on the way that she, took it and everything and stuff like that, because we all know Tatum Paxley, she was a little bit crazy, but then, Alexa is telling Charlotte that, they're kind of like, that Tatum Paxley reminds her of her and stuff, and then, um, Alexa tells Charlotte that, hey, look, Tatum has done something for us, so be nice and be kind, to what she's done and everything. And they open this door, and Tatum Paxley is sitting in there, and what it is that she made something like a closet thing with a collage of pictures of Alexa Bliss, and I think there was some of Charlotte Flair in there too and stuff, and Tatum Paxley is like, hey, welcome to our new do they love, their new locker room and stuff like that. And then Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair, kind of look at it and they kind of fake love it and stuff like that. And then the door closed. And then you got a little segment backstage with Nick Aldis and Cody Rhodes. Cody's telling Nick that they need to that him and Randy need to settle, their business, was going on between them and stuff. And Nick tells Cody, at Night of Champions Sunday, which will be coming up in September, that they'll have that match, between him and between Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes, and then here comes Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn comes out and he starts complaining. He says to Nick, you know, um, you know, that it's crazy that Nick, that Nick is playing favoritism, to Cody again and everything, and giving Cody a shot because Cody said, hey, he wants a match and everything and stuff. He says that he wants a match with Randy Orton, then he gets a match, and then complaining that he had, to wrestle in a fatal four-way match for number one contender when it was just him and Finn Balor supposed to be in the match. And then Sammy said, he had to wrestle with a broken hand. And it says when Cody wants, a match, all he has to do is just say, you know, win. And then Cody tells, Sammy, hey, look, enough is enough. If you want to do something, hey, let's go ahead and do it, and stuff. And he says with his little gout fist, then, let's go do something, let's go do something about it. Sammy tells Cody, the last time they were in a ring, that he did something that nobody else was able to do. And then he says, not even CM Punk, not Roman Reigns, not Drew McIntyre, and not even Brock Lesnar. And he says that he pinned, Cody in the middle of the ring, and it was a clean pin. And not only did he pinned him and took his championship away from him. And then Cody tells Sammy, does he think he can do it again? And Sammy says yes. And Cody tells him, then okay, well, let's do it tonight. And then Sammy says, yeah, he challenges me tonight when he knows that I um, can't do it tonight. And then Nick tells him, says that, oh, you can't or you won't. And then Sammy says he can't. And then Nick says, what if there's something in there? What if there was something in it for you? Then he tells Sammy, if we can beat Cody tonight, then he gets, the winner of CM Punk and Kevin Owens, and still, Sammy's still complaining, that he's hurt, that his hand is broke and stuff like that. And Nick tells Sammy, you know, he was hurt at SummerSlam, but he made the choice and then tells Sammy, he's giving him a chance, to make that choice again, you know, just let him know when and stuff. And then Nick Aldis walks away. And then we get the match with Carmelo Hayes and Baron Corbin for the U.S. title, for the men's U.S. title. This match was okay match, everything. Wasn't super duper in it, much. Baron Corbin did his thing, Carmelo Hayes did his thing, and then Baron Corbin wins. It ends up, you know, he puts an end of days on Carmelo Hayes, and he beats Carmelo Hayes. So now I'm thinking that Carmelo Hayes now he ain't never gonna hold another title because right now Triple H got him looking like a jobber. Carmelo Hayes is now a jobber. And I can't understand it because when he got drafted, at SmackDown, he was drafted number 1. And he started off pretty good, but now they got Carmelo Hayes looking goofy and stuff. I mean, he's great in the ring, but they're not giving, I don't know, Triple H is just not giving him nothing. But anyway, Baron Corbin, he wins the match, with the end of days and stuff. And then all of a sudden, Trick Williams comes out, you know, and as Trick Williams, was coming out doing his thing, Baron Corbin was looking at him, and then little Yachty, sneaks up on him, on Baron Corbin, and he hits him with the trick stick, and it does nothing to Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin turns around, and Yachty was about to hit him again, and Baron Corbin he takes the little trick stick and was about to, goes to hit Yachty, but he misses and he hits the ropes and everything, and then Trick Williams, he comes in, he gets into the ring and everything. And Baron Corbin goes after him. He ducks, and then he hits Baron Corbin with the trick shot and everything. And, Baron Corbin, he gets booted out of the ring and stuff. And then we get a little backstage with Tiffany Stratton and Chelsea Green. And Chelsea is thanking Tiffany Stratton, for coming out helping her and everything. But Tiffany's all back there, all sore, beat up, and everything like that. And Chelsea asks her if she's okay, and then Tiffany says that she's fine, and she's still gonna go out and compete, and then she walks off. And then we get the segment with Kevin Owens, and CM Punk. Kevin Owens comes out, and then just before he could say anything, CM Punk comes out, and CM Punk, tells KO, he knows KO has a lot to say, and then he wants KO to, tell him what he's got to say, what's on his mind, and stuff like that. Then they start talking about stuff that they did in the past, that was in the past about 20 years ago, when they was in the indie, you know, um, circuit and stuff like that. And then he said that one day that Sami Zayn embarrassed him, in the locker room, was chewing him out, was calling him fat, didn't have no respect for him or anything like that. So they went on and bickered on about that and everything. It wasn't a great promo. A lot of what was said today was said last week and stuff. So it's really, really, I don't know. And then they got to go in and go at it again, which is crazy. And this is going to be next Friday, on SmackDown. It'll be Kevin Owens and CM Punk and stuff on the 21st of August. But anyway, we get with Finn Balor, and Finn Balor is, talking to Nick Aldis. And Finn Balor, he's complaining that Nick, what Nick Aldis did, at SummerSlam, in the Fatal 4-Way match with him and Sammy, stuff like that. And Sammy, you know, um, tells Finn Balor, that he agrees with him that, he should have given Finn Balor the heads up, on what was gonna go down, that he was gonna be adding Kevin Owens and Gunther, to the match and everything. And then Gunther comes out and then they had their little frill and everything and stuff. And then Finn says, he's just going to tell Nick that he will do anything, you know, to get back to title contention and stuff like that. And he tells Gunther, if that means going through you, then so be it. I'll go through you. So I'm sure there's gonna probably be a match set up with Finn Balor against Gunther, and we probably already know that Gunther's probably gonna win the match. We'll see. We'll see how they're gonna do Finn Balor. Hopefully he does beat Gunther. But Gunther right now, if the Gunther that started out today is gonna be the same Gunther going forward, Gunther's gonna be he's gonna be a monster again, and I like it. Then we get the tag team title match. We have Damian Priest and R-Truth going against Eric and Ibar, the War Raiders. Then we have Toma and Talla Tonga of the MFTs, fighting for the tag team titles. The match was okay. It was pretty decent and stuff, It ended up, they did the brothers, keeper on R-Truth, and we have new tag team champions, which are Tama and Tala Tunga and stuff. And they stand strong and stuff. So we'll see, how that goes and everything. The tag team division on both sides, Raw and SmackDown, aren't really good. So I'm hoping somebody will get those titles and actually do something with them to bring things back up, because right now, creative and booking, it sucks, man. There's no real good storylines going on. But anyway, we move to Jayne and Tiffany Stratton going up against each other for the women's U.S. title match. And now we already know that Tiffany, she's hurt. The match was going all was okay. It was actually pretty decent. Wasn't too many screw ups in it and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, Jayne, she hits Tiffany Stratton with the rolling encore, and we have a new women's U.S. title holder, which is Jayne. Now, Jayne failed attraction. They have the tag team titles and the U.S. title. So we're going to get to see what happens with that. And then we get Jay Cargill, talking to Kathy, and she's telling, them talking about Ted and Paxley and what happened with B-Fab and Meechin and stuff like that, you know. And then they said that they're going to take care of Ted and Paxley. So we'll see what happens with that and everything. And then we get the match with Cody Rhodes and Sami Zayn. But then again, the match never got started because Randy Orton comes out and he attacks Cody and they brawl. Brawl and stuff. They even go out in the arena, out in the audience, and they fight and stuff like that. It wasn't anything crazy. It should have been a little bit more if it wasn't a match. So it should have been something that could lead to something bigger, and they didn't and stuff. You get Randy. He takes the chairs and stuff. Not a chair, but he took the stairs and everything. And he nailed Cody with the stairs, and he put the stairs on right there, and propped it on the announcer's desk at an angle and everything. And then he gets Cody, beats him up. He puts Cody in between, his head in there between the little grip part of the stairs and everything. He's about ready to hit Cody, with the chair and stuff, and the officials come out and everything, and they're telling Randy not to do it. And as Randy is about ready to hit Cody with the chair, Cody kicks Randy right between the legs and stuff. And then Cody gets the chair. And as Cody gets the chair and everything, he puts Randy right where Cody was at, in between the little chair spot and everything. And then Cody is about ready to hit Randy with the chair. And then the officials, they grab the chair from him and stuff like that and everything. And then they kind of break it up, and Cody's trying to get to Randy, but they don't let him, get to him and stuff like that. All right, and that's how it ends. So, all right, well, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, leave a comment. Let me know how you feel, if you agree or disagree with anything that I say and stuff like that. SmackDown tonight, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and just put it right in the middle, give it a 5. It was mid and stuff. Gunther did his thing. I kind of like the Gunther that we're getting now because this is Gunther that the should have already had. The people hate him, and it's a good hate and stuff. But anyway, thank you for watching. God bless. Deuces, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.